Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the change of command ceremony between Major General John S. Kim, the 51st Commandant of the United States Army War College, and Major General Stephen J. Maranian, the 52nd Commandant. During the ceremony, the audience will be asked to stand for honors in our national anthem. At this time, we would like to welcome our distinguished guests. Joining us for today's ceremony is Major General Kim is joined with his wife, Martha, their daughter, Katie, and son, James and Rob. In attendance are the following distinguished guests. The Honorable Pat Toomey, U.S. Senator for Pennsylvania, is represented by Mr. Robert D'Souza. Pennsylvania House Representative Greg Rothman. Lieutenant General Retired Dave Halverson, former Assistant Chief of Staff of Installation Management. Dr. Rory Cooper and Major General Retired Robert French, Civilian Assistant to Secretary of the Army. Deputy Adjutant General for the Pennsylvania Army National Guard, Major General Mark Schindler. Major General Retired William Rapp, the 50th Commandant of the United States Army War College. Major General Retired Brian Watson, former Director for J3 Operations and Cyber, United States Africa Command. The President of Dickinson College, Dr. Margie Ensign. The Chamber of Commerce President, Michelle Crowley. And the Director of the Carlisle York Area Local Development Group, Mr. Jamie Keener. And the AUSA President for the area, Colonel Retired Robert Hume. Thanks for coming. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for attention and honors, and remain standing for the national anthem and the invocation by Chaplain Colonel Pete Sniffen. General McConville has deferred honors to Major General Kim as he departs command of the U.S. Army War College.
Would you please bow with me in prayer? Almighty God, I pray first this morning for the people of this great institution. In this moment of change, may the faculty and staff remain steadfast in their dedication to the excellent and enduring mission of this college. Give them strength for all their labors and wisdom for every task. As we now pass these colors, I especially lift up our two leaders here today. Go with Major General and Mrs. Kim as they move on to Virginia and begin a new calling there. Let their new home be a blessing to them, as we are so grateful for the immense blessing that their leadership has been to us here at Carlisle Barracks these past 3 years. And now be with Major General and Mrs. Maranian as he assumes command of this great institution. Endow him with all wisdom for leadership that he will need. Strengthen and steady them for all the challenges ahead. May the War College continue to thrive as it has under his leadership as we travel through an era of challenge while continuing to meet our noble mission. These things I pray in your most holy name. Amen.
Please be seated. At this time, I direct your attention to the front row of the audience, where a special flower presentation will take place. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Major General Kim, Sergeant William Wilkin will now present Mrs. Kim a bouquet of red roses as a token of gratitude for the service she has rendered to the United States Army, the Army War College, and the Carlisle Barracks community. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Major General Maranian, Sergeant Nathaniel Dye will now present Mrs. Maranian a bouquet of yellow roses, signifying a new beginning and a welcome to the community. The official party will now take the position for the traditional passing of the colors. The colors serve as a proud emblem of our history. The ceremonial passing of the colors signifies the transferring of authority and responsibility from one commander to another. Today's passing of the United States Army War College colors symbolizes not only the transfer of responsibility for the War College to Major General Maranian, but also the continuance of command through time in service to the Army and the nation. By authority of Army Regulation 600-20, the undersigned assumes command of the United States Army War College in Carlisle Barracks, Pennsylvania. Effective 30 July 2020, signed Stephen J. Maranian, Major General, United States Army Commanding. Ladies and gentlemen, the Chief of Staff of the Army, General James C. McConville.
And I know, so it's really good to see everyone here from the community, because that's what it's really all about. You know, it's about some incredible people coming together, and I know it means a lot to John and Steve and really the entire team to have you all here. So we're going to say farewell to a great team, and not only are we passing the colors from John to Steve, we're also going to celebrate John's 35 years of distinguished service to the country, 35 years of distinguished service. And that's going to happen at a retirement ceremony later this afternoon. And John has had an incredible journey in the Army. He's an engineer by trade, but he's also a great soldier, an experienced educator, and one of our top thinkers at heart. He's a proven combat leader, and he's an innovative thinker. And he's done some incredible things. We only have very few officers have the ability to think like he does at the national security and enterprise level. And he's always been looking for better ways to deliver strategic education, and he's really done that so well. You know, under John's leadership, the Army Strategic Education Program has become fully operational. He's got a new academic building. He is responsible. He dragged me down here as the vice. You know, we're in the basement, and after you all showed us, so it's good to see that coming. And that really shows leadership. It's when leaders are looking beyond their term where it really makes a difference. Some are our less experienced leaders. They're concerned about their 2 years. But John's philosophy here is, how do I make this a better place for the long term? And when it comes to things like getting new buildings and those type things, that's going to set the stage for the future. And that's under construction right now. And the other thing is this summer, he started a new certificate program for professional development for leaders across the Department of Defense. So, John, I know you're giving up the colors. It's never easy, but I want to thank you for your outstanding leadership, not only for the last 3 years, but really for the 35 years of selfless and distinguished service to the nation. So congratulations to both you and Martha. See, I'm kind of putting that R. That's how we say it in Boston, Martha, you know, and on a well-deserved retirement. And, you know, today we also recognize an incredible team that makes up the Army War College. You have over 330 personnel here, which about 234 are faculty and academic leaders. And this team here makes incredible contributions, not only to leadership development, but also to the Army, the Joint Force, and really the nation, and international allies and partners. And as I was talking to John earlier, it's amazing what a difference this college makes to our international partners. You know, as I travel, and quite frankly, until I became chief and I do a lot of counterpart visits, you don't really realize just how important our international military education and training program. We go around and meet these chiefs, and their experience here shaped how they see the world, how they see our country, how they see our relationship, and it really makes a huge difference. And you know, the Army War College is home to some of our most experienced and brightest officers and civilians, who are not only some of our best thinkers, but also provide significant and meaningful contributions to our national security and education of our future strategic leaders. And it shows every single day. And when you take a look at who came out of here, you know, we've had past chiefs of staff, past chairmen, and, you know, again, as you go around the world, many of the chiefs and the chads have come from here, and you all had an impact on them. And this college graduates over about 2,000 leaders in various, not just from the War College, but a whole bunch of programs that really make a difference, and that allows our Army and our military to be ready to compete and win. And so I'd like to thank all the War College faculty and staff, the soldiers, the non-commissioned officers, the civilians, for making this the premier education institution. And I and the Secretary and all the Army leadership truly appreciate everything you do every single day. And we're blessed to have Steve here as the next Commandant. Thank you to Cynthia. Steve, I've known Steve since Afghanistan. And, you know, he's got all the skill sets necessary to lead this organization. And I have complete confidence, the Army has complete confidence that you will continue to do those things that we need to do. And so again, I want to thank you all, for the Chems family. I want to thank you, Steve, and your family, and for being here today. Remember, it's about people first, it's winning matters, and we remain Army strong. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, General McConville. Ladies and gentlemen, Major General John S. Kim, 51st Commandant of the U.S. Army War College.
Good morning, everyone. What a great day to be a soldier, a great day to be at the United States Army War College at Carlisle Barracks. This place was founded under the British Army in 1757 as an encampment. Continental Army took over in 1776. It was called Washingtonburg for a while. Home to the cavalry and the Indian School in the 1800s, a medical service corps after World War I, and the Army War College since 1951. A transformative institution since it's arrived here. And think about that, that was moved up here in the middle of the Korean War. So the Army, even in the middle of a war, is thinking, you know, we need to continue the education development, and that's what we've been here ever since. General McConville, President Ensign, many distinguished guests, including a number of my classmates from the class of '85, staff, faculty, and friends of the United States Army War College, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for joining us here in Bliss Hall in this COVID-19 world with good social distancing. Special thanks to all the staff and executive service and everybody else who put all this together and made sure we could still pull this off. And also hi to those that are who dialed in to be streaming. I guess you can't really say dialed in anymore because we're not using the dial-in modem, but what's the better term? Streaming? I'm not sure. It's an important day as we continue the evolutionary change for the Army War College. It is a premier institution for developing invaluable strategic leaders and influential ideas. It has been a wonderful 3 years for Martha and I. and James, who's been a student here, and Katie and Rob as they've come through here part-time. I'm one of 3 commandants / presidents of the War College to not be a graduate of the Army War College. So the faculty will be happy that Steve's coming in because he knows how things are supposed to operate. And the other one was Samuel Young, who was the first one in July of 1902, and the first students in 1904, and then Major General Bob Scales. I didn't know this, but if you know General Scales, on my second day here, he showed up and goes, "You're only the second one since 1902 that was not a graduate, and I'm the other one," right? That mildly interesting fact aside, it has been truly an honor to lead, team, and serve here. It's a special place. General McConville, sir, thanks for those nice remarks. Thank you for taking the time to come up here today. I know you're off on a trip next week, and the to-do list for you is always out of control. I've been in the Pentagon enough on 3 tours to know that the chief's got a hectic time. It is valuable and empowering for the War College, and for me personally, to be a direct report unit to you. Most people don't understand what that really means. They think tactically that means you're like my battalion commander, I'm a company commander, and every day you're telling me what to do. Am I supposed to shoot, move, or communicate today? But that's not really true. The CSA is a tremendous busy job, as most of us know, and it's an interesting mix of both influence and authority, right? In many ways, statutorily, a lot less authority than people know, but amazing amount of influence. You are the Chief of Staff of the Army. But the reality is I don't get a lot of day-to-day guidance. I remember when I first arrived, I'd been here like 2 days, I'm walking down the street meeting people, and somebody comes up and goes, and then it was General Milley was the chief, and they said, what does the chief want you to do? And I didn't know how to answer. I was like, well, if I give a big list, will they be happy because that means the chief really cares about us? Or do I say the truth, which is not a lot, right? And I decided not to say a lot. I just like, oh, chief's happy, he's got a lot of things he wants to work on. But why is that? Because the reason is trust. At more senior levels, you're not supposed to need too much guidance, so they messed up in putting you there, usually. There's been a few times in the last 2 or 3 years, I know General McConville, who's the vice, now the chief, wondered if they'd made a mistake, but not very often. And I know, sometimes you do need a little guidance, and I got it when I needed it. I always knew, and I know the same applies to Steve Maranian, that you put me here to have a positive impact, and I hope in many ways, and you highlight a few that I think I've had. You empowered me to innovate. You empowered the institution to innovate and be people-centric. That's why the War College exists, right? You don't educate and do research. We're not a tech center, right? We're informed by technology, but that's not what we are. We're about people. And at the hardest level, at the enterprise level, a strategic level where policy and programs and the messy nexus between the strategic and operational come together. So thanks for the trust. Proud to have worked for you and the other senior leaders of the Army. I always knew you had my back, and I know you felt confident that you knew I had your back. Secretary Root 100 years ago presciently described the challenge we face today and our enduring purpose. He said, only an institution perpetual but always changing in its individual elements. That's really powerful when you think about it. Perpetual but always changing, and I think that's always been the case. Sometimes more, sometimes less. We live in a hyper-competitive environment. The chief highlighted a few about that by competition. Every day, across the instruments of power, globally and nationally. How do we get leaders ready? How do we get leaders to think? How do we get leaders to have ideas that actually have an impact and not just ideas? What do you change? What do you amplify? Thinking and working towards that end with the great people here at all the schools, centers, institutes, and programs, the SCIPs, as the acronym is known here, is the part that I will miss the most. One of the hard things about military education is we're the direct users of the product. Unlike most graduate schools and undergraduate schools, you obviously care about the students. You want them to do well. But if they didn't take something they should have, it's kind of not your problem, right? If they graduate and didn't take enough biology, you're like, well, you should have taken more biology, right? For us, what do? We survey, we check them. They work for us still. And then you'll get a note from General McConville going, a couple of your graduates were a little hurting last week. You need to do a little more in this arena. I get that all the time, right? I know my predecessors did. Because we are the users of the product and the Army and the Joint Force is. So that's the powerful part about it. Recently retired Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, General Dunford, was here graduated in 1999. General McConville, as you mentioned, was a graduate Army War College Fellows Program and was here in 9/11 year doing a fellowship. And think about that. I'm not going to get too much into how old you are, sir, but that's a while ago. And he didn't think when he was graduating, and there was no expectation he was going to be the Chief of Staff of the Army almost 20 years later, right? And so think about that today. How do we get Lieutenant colonels and colonels, the class of academic year 21 arriving now, DD and resident students, right? Fast forward those times, that's the mid-2030s. If you think of our strategist captains and majors, that's the 2040s. That's who we're talking about today. Just think of the changes from 1998, 1999 to the present. Pretty dramatic. So we have to develop those competencies and abilities, and that's what the War College is all about. That's why we have great faculty, great staff to think forward. And one thing I think that we have been focused on the last 3 years is trying to figure out new ways what that should look like. And as I arrived 3 years ago, spent like a week or two cleaning up all the messes Bill Rapp dumped on me. I'm used to it. I've been and followed behind him, sometimes a year or two in between, and there was still messes he'd left, right? But we have a unique opportunity. 3 years from now, when I arrived 2017, it was 3 years to 2020. And a chance, if we were lucky and not killed by the inevitable fight over resources, to have a new Milcom building that Chief mentioned and that he helped support over time. The Army had freed up travel funds a little bit and slowed up. You didn't need the permission of the President and the Pope to go TDY. Almost, but not quite. We had a new provost, Dr. Jim Breckenridge, who's I think's been my partner in crime in many ways, who had great experience in higher education outside of the military and the military. And a tremendous team with great directors and staff. A dean like Richard Lackerman, who was just starting his 5th year at the time. People like Greg Thompson and Ken Agee here on the leadership team. And a budget wizard like Lynn Snyder, who does great money laundering and not in an illegal way. So we launched ourselves, the department chairs, Jim and I, and sent people out, small groups of 1 or 2 people, to go see what other people are doing. What will data analytics look like in 5 to 10 years? Not just technology, but what's the educational methodology to go help people understand them in a very complicated world? We went to military peer institutions, think tanks, universities, also the public-private sector to find out what do we not know? What is out there that we can bring back, share, and start to figure out the answers? And I think it's been tremendously fun and powerful. What are the implications for getting ourselves ready? Directly in support of an Army War College like the Chief mentioned, that's getting ready 5 years from now will be the 250th anniversary of the United States Army, right? Who's getting ready for the next 50 to 250 years? That's us. And we were empowered to innovate, not just for change, but to have a real impact over time. And the question is, how do you do that? It started to come together, I think, in profound ways. A new building, the class of 2023 will occupy if the Corps of Engineers doesn't mess it up. I won't be around to beat them up anymore. It helped that I have a Corps of Engineer background, so I knew sometimes how to go, no, you really think that works? I've seen it fail at least 5 times before. So that was helpful. A truly state-of-the-art building that will bring people together to think, learn, and connect, both personally and virtually. We can't do that now, not the same way. And towards that, having new parts to experiment with, right? You can't wait and move into a new place and then think you're going to start on day one. So how do we do things now with experimental classroom and one-button studios and things like that to bring it together? The idea from 2 years ago about a applied communication and learning lab that no institution in the United States has one of those. How do you take and focus on communicative arts in a very different way, a lab to practice, but also combining with educational methodology, the faculty part? Most institutions don't do that, right? An undergraduate institution, you have the faculty are a little older and students are 18 to 21, and sometimes you don't want too much connective tissue between those two. Right? Here we have 35 to 45-year-old students typically, sometimes older. Our GOs are sometimes older than that. So our faculty and students are different connections. How do we bring them together in a different way? It's going to be cool, even in a COVID world. I look forward to seeing it come about. We had department chairs that helped bring a lot together. Because the chief approved it, we have people like Doug Winton and Mike Hosey, colonels that are now going to be able to stay beyond their mandatory retirement date for a couple extra years, so we can have that continuity of 3 to 5 years that we didn't normally have to drive through that innovation. You can't innovate in a year, right? It just doesn't work. And then places like CSL with Kenny Mintz and the team over there, gaming and forecasting and developing how does the strategic and operational come together and how you do headquarters and doctrine going forward. And then also to support the contingency mission they have there that's vitally important. A transformed SSI focused and targeted on research, influential ideas in a new way with our new director, Carol Evans, who's only been in job since May and is just the right person to take them to the next level. SSL with our new dean, Colonel Michelle Ryan, and lots of faculty who are trying new things. COVID has just accelerated that in many ways. How do you flip a classroom, sometimes in person, sometimes virtually, sometimes when you can't see their face, sometimes when you can see their face? Interesting problem, and we got the right people doing it. AHEC with Jeff Mangelsdorf, You may not know this, sir, but we have begged, borrowed, and stolen about $12 to $15 million over the last 2 or 3 years in a non-money laundering way to start the digitization project out there, and we're now at the point where it's starting to pay off. It's a few more years, but it truly is going to amplify the Army story and make what we do accessible to the American people and to researchers forever. And then a place like PKSOI, no longer directly under the War College, but integral that it was kept to remain here a little bit smaller with Scott Story and Mike Rahut, because like the chief said, half of our international students, that's what they do, is peacekeeping and stabilization when they go home. That's their medal task, right? And so that's what we need to be part of doing with them. An ASEP team, like the chief mentioned, that does the best executive education in the military, and I've spent time in Wharton, Kellogg, Sloan School, out at USC, a couple other places, and all of them look at some of the things we do and go, we wish we did some of what you do for your executive education. And then finally, a leadership team with a provost like Jim Breckenridge, a decom like Kimo Gallahue, and chief of staff like Eric Kreider, who just make this place better, right? They're great leaders, and they made my job easy. Especially good having a dean of students like Kimo. I didn't have to do any of the messy stuff. Martha and I are truly going to miss the friendship of you and your wives. I could go on, but I couldn't do justice to so many who contribute to this place. I'll hold off on saying too many specific things about the family until our retirement later this afternoon, other than thank my sister Michelle and my sister-in-law Teresa for making the trip up. To Katie, Rob, James, and Martha, you all make the world go round for me. In the preface of the 1994 edition of the History of the United States Army War College, it was a history that was written about responsible command from 1902 into the 80s. It was updated in the late 80s with a little addendum. It highlights that the 1984 edition said, from the arrival in 1951 to the 1980s, there was no sharp point of divergence in the Army War College. A student would recognize what they were doing to those points. But by 1994, it was apparent, it is discernible now, a decade later, that the withdrawal of the U.S. forces from Vietnam and the efforts in the 80s was a discriminating event. It led to years of restoration, reconstruction, and reform. So I would hope that 15, 20 years from now, looking back at our collective efforts on this window, people will say that the time from 2015 to about 2022 or 23 was also a discriminating period. Look back and they would say they set the foundation for the 20s and 30s in a very profound way. So the good thing is we have the right person coming in, the 52nd Commandant, to bring that to bear, to work with this great team across the Army War College, across Carlisle Barracks, and internationally to make it even better. Steve, we had a great transition together. Truly enjoyed it. We knew each other from the past, but it was fun to spend some time and commiserated about some of your fun as the provost of Army University that I used to do and how some things change and some things don't. The Army got it right. Few people, as the chief mentioned, really understand senior level education in both PME and then externally. With your background, you're one of the few that does, so the Army did the right thing. And you were class president, so you have a unique viewpoint, so we're so glad to have you here. Martha and I are very happy for you and Cynthia. Welcome back to Carlisle. Good luck. Thanks, everybody.
Ladies and gentlemen, the 52nd Commandant of the United States Army War College, Major General Steve Maranian.
Well, good morning, everybody. Mr. D'Souza, our distinguished representatives, General Halverson, to our great CASAs, community leaders, the Chem family, and fellow general officers. Not to forget our distinguished members of our families and our friends, and especially those who are taking time out of their days to connect with us virtually over the internet. Welcome, and thanks for joining us this morning. Cynthia and I are absolutely thrilled to be back here at Carlisle Barracks and rejoin the Army War College. This is a family, and we do so, we rejoin you with sincere humility and great respect. In keeping with the long tradition of remarks by incoming commanders to being brief and recognizing that deeds matter more than words, I will be succinct. General McConville, sir, thank you very much for the opportunity to serve our soldiers, our civilians, our families, all of our people. To those who much is given, much is expected, and I promise I'll give 100% in that effort. Cynthia, thank you for all that you do and all that you have done over the last 27 years of our marriage, but right now in particular, thanks for making our 15th move since 2000. And thanks for making this one as easy as possible. To the Chems, John and Martha, thanks for being awesome sponsors. You guys did it right, and you really took care of us, not just in the week that we've been here, but in the weeks and months leading up to our arrival, and thank you so much for doing that. And I look forward to spending a little time with your great family throughout the day while you're here. John, thank you for your stewardship of this institution, and I sincerely mean that. It's been fantastic to watch that. Your leadership has been absolutely peerless in that regard, and I know that I have huge shoes to fill, and thank you for all that you've done, and Cynthia and I wish you all the very best in retirement. I'm sure we'll see each other again soon. Most importantly, to the War College team, I can't tell you how absolutely excited we are to be back here in central Pennsylvania. What you do for our Army can't be overstated. You have a huge impact, not just within the institution and to the students and families here, but the breadth and depth of what you reach out to is immense. In addition to being the Commandant, I look forward to being your coach, your loudest cheerleader, your advocate. And I'm pleased with all that I've seen so far, but I know that there's so much more that I have yet to see. And I look forward to exploring that, doing a lot of listening, doing a lot of discussing, and thinking about how we can take things to that direction that John just talked about, and getting to that strategic vision of how we're going to shape the leaders of our Army for the 30s and 40s. Finally, a big thanks to all that put this ceremony together, executive services and all that are working behind the scenes. This didn't just happen, and even in a COVID environment, it's great to look out and see familiar faces from my past, Lieutenant Colonel retired Harry Owens, all the way back to my Bucknell days as my ROTC instructor, all the way through friends and War College classmates and Nestlers here, my old battalion commander, General Halverson. It's just wonderful to see you here and to spend a little time together today. With that, I'll just close and say strength and wisdom.